Hi everyone, it's Chris and welcome back to another video. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to have another look at the music papers from back in the day. Another copy of Sounds. I've got quite a few of these, but this time it's from November the 3rd, 1979. Front cover is Girls' School, part of the new wave of British heavy metal, which was just starting to gain a little bit of traction here in the UK. Decent band, Girls' School. Saw them a couple of times as support acts. They were pretty good. Over the page, we've got news that John Martin is playing some concerts and Wire are touring, so are Slaughter and the Dogs. And a fairly unusual lineup of Thin Lizzy as well. So we've got obviously Phil Lynott and Scott Gore and Brian Downey, but we've got Dave Flett on guitars. He was a guy who played in Manfred Mann's Earth Band for a number of years. And on keyboards, Midure. Now, Midure had stepped in for Gary Moore on guitar on their Japanese tour. And Midure always regarded himself as the worst guitarist that Thin Lizzy ever had. So Midure playing on keyboards on a few dates, which would have been really interesting to go and see. I've seen a few incarnations, 4 different incarnations of the band, but that would have been fascinating. So we've got an EP from the Stranglers. We've got Neil Young with an upcoming album. We've got Human League on tour with Teardrop Explodes. That would have been pretty decent. And over the page, we've got Boston UK tour. They didn't tour here very often, sadly. I'd love to have seen them. I think their debut's a classic. Queen on tour. And then new single from Gary Newman and Public Image with their Metal Box album and so on. Blue Oyster Cult with Magnum, Lena Lovage, AC/DC, The Passions, Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark, and the latest single from Dr. Feelgood, Put Him Out of Your Mind, which came from the album Let It Roll, which is the album that followed Private Practice. Private Practice had Down at the Doctor's and Milk and Alcohol in it, and they were pretty big hits here in the UK, but this album wasn't very good. That single's not great, and the album isn't very good. Kind of like the start of the end for that band, I always felt. Blue Oyster Cult, supported by Magnum on their 79 UK tour. I saw them at Southampton that year. And we've got the Adverts, who are breaking up. And then over the page, a full-page advert for 154 by Wire, a band whose albums have eluded me. They're always very expensive, and hopefully one day I'll pick up something by them, an original for decent price. I often see on eBay, I don't know if anyone else does, but cutouts from these sort of era newspapers, and things like a whole-page advert for Wire would probably, you could probably charge quite a lot for that. Not that I'm going to cut the paper up, that's ridiculous. And then over the page we've got Vinyl Score, which is all the charts. We've got the alternative chart, which is always a really interesting mix of kind of punk and new wave and post-punk and reggae and all sorts of stuff. And then we've got the Sounds playlist, what the writers are listening to, quite a lot of them listening to Dead Kennedys, Stranglers, Girl. And then we've got the rock and roll chart, the disco chart, which is headed by Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, which is one of Michael Jackson's best from his current album Off the Wall. And then we've got the heavy metal chart, a mixture of the old guard and new guard, headed there by Rush, 2112 Temples of Syrinx. I guess they mean Overture Temples of Syrinx, because you couldn't nod your head to a complete side of vinyl. That would be ridiculous. And then we've got the British singles with Lena Martell. I don't remember that song. Probably if I heard it, I would. Video Killed a Radio Star. A bit of a mix of stuff going on there. US albums topped by Zeppelin. And we've got, at the bottom there, Eat to the Beat, new entry from Blondie. And then over the page, we've got the UK albums, top 75, topped by Regatta de Blanc by The Police, who are also in the top 10 with Outlanders de Moore. Tusk just being kept off the top spot by The Police, but a really good mix of stuff in the charts there. Fantastic. I can see Mr. Universe by Gillan, which I think would have done a lot better if the record company Acrobat hadn't gone out of business so quickly. Reggae chart, and then an advert for a reggae tinge song by the Ruts called Jar War, which is from their album The Crack, which is a classic. Came out in 80, the Crack. So this is just at the end of 79. And then over the page we've got an article, various articles, one about a gig from Specials, Madness and Selector. That would have been fantastic to see, wouldn't it? Absolutely brilliant. And then over the page, the Dead Kennedys. There's a band that look nothing like they sound. And then we've got the Vapors, their debut single. I saw them supporting, I don't remember anything about them actually, but they did support the Jam on their 79 tour, saw them at Poole Arts Centre. Don't have that debut single. And then over the page, you've got an article on the Prince Buster, and then some tour dates from Fingerprints, a band I know pretty much nothing about. And then over the page, album from Hugh Cornwell and Robert Williams, White Room, Nosferatu, sorry. So yeah. And then we've got stuff from the States, an article about Susie Quattro, and then over the page, an advert for a Toshiba tape player, which my mum and dad had. I used to record all the Friday rock shows and charts and stuff on that particular device. And over the page, a band from Essex I've never heard of, I don't know anything about, called The Rave. I guess they weren't very successful. And an advert for a single called I Can Only Dream by Protex, a Belfast band who originally were on Good Vibration Records alongside Rudy and Undertones. They're a Belfast band named after a Clash song. They're big Clash fans, and it's named after Protex Blue, but that's their latest single on Polydor. And then an article from Girls' School on the far side. As I said, I thought they were quite a decent band. That article continues over the page. And then we've got an advert for Wasted, the second single from Def Leppard, which is quite a poorly produced song. In fact, it's much better on the album. It's a bit thin on the single. And then we've got a whole page advert for the debut solo, or the new solo album from Cozy Powell. Now, there's a song on here that that Van der Graaf Generator did, Theme 1, and they do a version of it. Theme 1 was the Friday Night Connection music, and Cozy Powell does a version of that, and it sounds a bit like Star Wars. It's not very good at all, but there's one track on here called Killer, which has got Don Airey from Deep Purple playing on it. It's written by him, in fact, and Gary Moore absolutely shredding on it. It's a great song with some tremendous double bass drumming from Cozy Powell. Over the page, we've got the Dickies. There's a band I could never get into. I just thought they were a novelty act. I never really got them at all. Blue Oyster Cult on tours. I said I saw them in 79. That was at Southampton, and they were touring the album Mirrors, which was a real step down from albums that had come before. And then we've got a whole page article on Wire, hugely influential band, who at the time kind of passed me by. I didn't really understand them. I do now. I didn't then when I was a teenager. And then over the page, an advert for Boots. I used to buy loads of 45 in Boots, which was in the Arndale Centre in Poole, and singles were 45p at the time, but there's lots of albums there as well. And then we've got the band Girl, who feature a very, very young Phil Collen, who now plays with Def Leppard. Joined them in 83 or something, I think. But I saw Girl a couple of times as support band. Saw them at Reading, and I think they supported. I can't remember. Was it Ian Gillan possibly? Anyway, decent band, bit glammy. And then an advert with some tour dates for Samson, and this was the band that featured a guy called Bruce, whose real name was Bruce Dickinson, who went on to be the lead singer in Iron Maiden. And over the page, we've got some singles: Hugh Cornwell, New York Blondes, Protex, early single from The Cure, that's Jumping Someone Else's Train, Psychedelic Furs, Killing Joke, U2, Out of Control single, Dublin's answer to the Skids, I don't think so, and then a great single from John Cooper Clarke called Twat, which is just so good. It's such a brilliant, it's a poem really, it's fantastic, really, really good. And then we've got Martha and the Muffins and all various things, even Camel bringing a single out, and then Magnum 2 album. And then at the bottom here we've got on Music for Pleasure, a stiff kind of compilation, live stiffs. More singles: The Freshies, Sly and the Family Stone, White Snake. It's interesting with White Snake. I do like White Snake, but songs like Long Way From Home was such kind of a song that was so stuck in the kind of mid-70s. You know, bands were sounding a lot different at that particular time. But And over the page, full-page advert for the Fine Art of Surfacing, Boomtown Rats. There's a band I never could get into. I think it's just Bob Geldof, couldn't stand him. John Peel always had a section in here. Starjets, I don't remember them. And then the Skids, their latest album, $3.99. And then in the middle here, we got Gary Bushell talking about music that's taking place in Scotland at the moment with Scars, Another Pretty Face, Fakes, Punters, lots of bands who obviously didn't make it. Cleveland Rocks, latest single from Ian Hunter, which is a great song. And we've got cartoons up here. The article, Scottish Bands, continues. Angelic Upstarts, Never Had Nothing. That's their latest single, which I do have, which is okay. Lots of posters. I remember having a couple of these. I had a Rodney Matthews one, which had butterflies on it, and the centre of Close to the Edge by Yes, Roger Dean. I had that one on my wall at home, which I probably got from this particular supplier, actually. And then a few articles, including a new album from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I guess that's Damn the Torpedoes, isn't it? Whole page advert for Trapeze, which is claiming here that it's one of England's premier heavy metal rock bands. Well, they weren't heavy metal, and they certainly weren't at the top. A band that used to have Glenn Hughes from Deep Purple in before he went on to Deep Purple. And then coupons for the heavy metal, Sounds Heavy Metal album, which I got, and I think it's a brilliant album. It was Damn the Torpedoes. There we are. There's his latest album, which gets 4 stars. Stevie Wonder's Journey Through the Secret Life of Plants, which I thought was pretty grim. Richard Lloyd, television fame. Dr. Feelgood gets 3.5 stars. I think that's actually fairly high for that album, if I'm honest. And then we've got the Bogey Boys. I really don't know them. And a variety of adverts and reviews. Samson's Survivors gets 4 stars. I don't know if any of you had a watch like that in the 70s. My dad used to work for a company that used to make the liquid crystals for Casio watches, and I did have a watch a bit similar to that. I thought I was so techie. I thought I was Steve Jobs with a watch like that, I really did. And then all the record companies, all their ads as well. Small Wonder Records was absolutely brilliant. And I've said this before on this. That is like my wants list. Absolutely brilliant stuff on their page. And then we've got more reviews from albums, including 1 star for Victim of Love by Elton John, which is probably 1 star too many. And then we've got the Specials album, which was just fantastic. And we've got horoscopes. And then some tour reviews, AC/DC, who I think were absolutely at their height in 79. Sensational, just for the sad death in February rather, of 1980 of Bon Scott. And after that, I think they went downhill, if I'm honest, although they did obviously have big success. But there you go. Whitesnake, and then Specials, Madness and Selector. And I remember, because I lived in Poole, I remember that band, or those bands coming to Bournemouth, and I thought about going. I wish I had, actually. I really regret not seeing that, but anyway. Judy Zook, who I have seen in concert at Poole Arts Centre, and then a variety, Stiff Little Fingers, tremendous band. The Tourists, The Knack, American power pop stuff. Possibly a one-hit wonder, but hey, what a great hit that was. And then we've got some Muso stuff. And then we've got Kurt Weill cartoon at the top there, aka Alan Moore of 2000 AD fame. And then badges and T-shirts. And then we've got letters and things. And then advert for Record Needle, and then all the tour dates. I say this every time. God, I'd love a time machine to take me back through some of those concerts. Just amazing. Just look at some of the people that are playing here. Ian Hunter, Wire, Chelsea, good punk band, Penetration, The Lurkers, Slaughter and the Jogs, Psychedelic Furs, Blue Oyster Cult, Def Leppard, Classified Ads, Records for Sale, all that kind of stuff, Records Wanted, Carnaby Suits. Over the page, here's all the letters. Advert for Wild Horses, a band that had Jimmy Bain and Brian Robertson on it. That was their single Criminal Tendencies, which the B-side, The Rapist, terrible name, but it's a good song, and I saw them on tour. They were a good band, actually, although they lacked a singer. And then an advert for I Only Want to Be With You, which is what the Dusty Springfield song, done by the Tourists, and that's their tour dates as well. So there you go. That's Sounds from 1979. Let me know what your memories are of that year in the comments below, and I'm sure I'll be back sometime with another video. Cheers.